Welcome back to the final video of our BatchX series. In this video, we will focus on scene settings and naming, and see how they work together to prepare a complete VJSON file inside Playground. First, let's open the Playground and load a sample ring model. We will use this ring only as a reference to prepare the scene settings so that we can see the lighting and materials while we work. Later, these settings can be reused for other rings that share the same naming layer. When loading a model, a message appears at the top asking if you want to add default materials. You can click Yes to apply them. This way, the ring will already have basic white gold and white diamonds, which makes it easier to start working with the scene. After the sample materials are applied, we can begin preparing the scene settings. On the right panel, there is the Viewer tab. Here, you can switch to render mode and set the scale value to 2. This makes the model look sharper and higher in quality, so it is easier to work with the details. Next, on the left panel, there is the Scene Presets tab. There are many presets available, and you can try several to compare how they look. When the system asks if you want to load the material configurator from the preset, choose No, because we will create our own configurator later. One of the presets can be selected as a base and then refined further. Now let's move to the HDRI maps for metals. The overall look and feel of the model depends a lot on these maps. You can try different ones and observe how the reflections on the ring change. In this case, I stop at HDRI number 37, which works very well for this setup. Then, on the left panel, there is the Gem Environment tab. Here, you can test different HDRI maps for diamonds. Each one changes how bright the stones appear, how strong the contrast is, and how many sparkles are visible. One map can be chosen that feels most balanced for the scene. Next comes the background. You can select whichever you prefer, but most often white or black is used. For this demonstration, I decide to stay with white. In the Ground tab, several presets are available. You can select one manually, but for this example, a simple shadow preset works well, so I will leave it as it is. After that, the Advanced Settings tab allows you to enable SS Bevel. The value can be increased to 8, which makes the edges softer and more natural, without appearing too sharp. For final adjustments, you can use the Post-Processing tab on the right panel. Screen space reflection can be disabled if a cleaner look is preferred. Here, tone mapping, exposure, saturation, and contrast can be modified. Often it works well to add a little more contrast to give the jewelry more depth and clarity. The bloom setting can also be reduced, for example, to around 0.09, so the highlights stay controlled and not too intense. Now that the scene is ready, we can move on to creating material configurators. I will begin with the shank. When the object is selected, a button appears on the canvas to add a configurator. I click it, and the layer name is shown. Here it is Metal 01. For this configurator, I add 3 variations: white gold, yellow gold, and rose gold. Next, I move to the head of the ring. Its layer name is Metal 02. I repeat the same process and add 3 variations again: white gold, yellow gold, and rose gold. With these steps, configurators for both metals are complete and ready to preview. Now I continue with the center stone. The layer name shown is Gem 01. For this configurator, I create several gemstone options: white diamond, emerald, ruby, sapphire, pink diamond, and aquamarine. This results in 6 variations, giving flexibility to explore different looks for the main stone. Finally, I select the side stones, which have the layer name Gem 02. Here I keep it simple and add only one option: white diamond. This keeps the side stones consistent without introducing extra colors. Once all configurators are added, I rename each option for clarity. At the bottom panel, hovering over an option reveals a rename field. I use this to change the names to something simple and clean, such as white gold, rose gold, ruby, or diamond white. Renaming ensures that all materials are organized and that the correct names appear later in the final output files. With configurators complete and properly named, the scene is now ready for setting up camera views. On the right panel, in the Viewer tab, there is a setting called Field of View. This controls how the model is displayed. Lower values create an almost isometric look, while higher values give a stronger perspective. I usually prefer a value around 10 or 15, which provides a balanced view. For convenience, the option Fit Object to Scene can also be used. This automatically scales the model so it sits well in the viewer. Now the views can be created. In the Animations tab, there is a section called Camera Views. I position the model and select Add Current View. A new view is created and appears in the list, where it can be renamed. For example, I renamed the front view as 01. I continue with a few more angles. A side view, another general view, and finally a close-up. For the close-up, I hold Shift and drag the model in the viewer to move it closer. Then add the view. Each one is renamed clearly, so the perspective is easy to identify later. When the camera views are ready and properly named, the setup is complete and prepared for export. On the left panel, there is the Export tab. Inside this section, under Scene Settings, the option Download VJSON is available. By clicking this, a VJSON file is created. The file contains everything that was prepared: the environment and HDRI maps, the material configurators, and the camera views. It does not include the 3D model itself, only the setup. Because of this, the same VJSON file can be applied to other models, as long as they use the same layer naming. Different VJSON files can also be created for different jewelry types, for example, one for rings, another for pendants, and another for earrings. Let's open BatchX. Here, I load the folder that contains the model together with the scene settings. Once loaded, the model appears in the viewer. All the materials that were created in the scene settings are visible, and the camera views are also included. Next, I add a ground pulse with distance set to 20 and latitude set to 15. I also enable video capture to create a turntable video from this ground pulse position. Then I go to the export options. I set the width and height to 2000 pixels and the image quality to 16. With everything ready, I start the rendering process. On the left side, you can see how the results are structured into folders. Inside the folder of the model, all selected material variations are being rendered. The same folder also receives the turntable videos that were enabled earlier. The file names are structured in a clear order. First comes the model name, then the selected material names, for example, white gold for the shank and white gold for the head. After that comes the gem name, for example, emerald. And finally, the camera view that was used for the render. This way, every image and video is generated with clean and consistent naming. And that's it. BatchX is here to help you streamline your workflow and bring every detail to life. And if you still have any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to schedule a call and guide you through. Happy renders!